insurance. I mean, our health insurance rates are crazy as they are, and to have them uncapped, I think that's something that we need to look at long and hard. And I think that there would need to be some strong guarantees from the insurance companies before I could make a vote to repeal no fault.
Well, I'm always in favor of reducing fraud, waste, and abuse. I do know that with no fault, if you're in a car accident and you are severely hurt severely, that maybe for the rest of your life you're quadriplegic, that the insurance company with no fault will cover all of your medical expenses. But there is abuse, there is fraud, and there is waste. It's not like going to the doctor, and I have Blue Cross Blue Shield, so the doctor will only get paid a certain amount. With our car insurance, the doctors can get, and the hospitals can get the maximum rate. So I think we really need to look at that. I would definitely look at repealing no fault.
I moved here 32 years ago and I didn't like no fault insurance. Never have. But I am concerned about the capping liability for insurance companies if you're injured in a car accident and you're now unable to perform normal functions. Now they want a cap on how much the insurance will pay. Well, who's going to pay for it if the insurance doesn't pay for it? Won't that just fall back on the state? Somebody's got to help this individual because they're unable to work, to take care of themselves, and they need medical care. I think that we do need to look at what's going on with insurance in the state of Michigan, and someone's going to pay for the liability sum. If it were me or my family member, I would want them cared for the rest of their lives. So it is very expensive to have our insurance here in Michigan, and I think that it is something that we do need to very intensively review and see what kind of options are available to us as consumers.
Okay, just before we jump into audience questions, I'm going to combine two. What is your philosophy on responsibilities of funding the government and their regulations of occupational licensing, such as dog groomers and eyebrow threading? And at one point in time, it was reported that it took more training and licensing to become a hairstylist than a lawyer in the state of Michigan. Please give us your thoughts on that. I think we start with Mr. Arndt.
Well, as someone whose occupation is licensed, I certainly feel that there is an awful lot of change that can take place to save the taxpayers money. One of those that's taking place right now is actually LARA, a licensing agency. It's working with the Association of Realtors, like they have done with the Realtors Association, the Lawyers Association as well, to allow them to regulate, check on hours served, to basically get that away from the state and get it back to the private sector. Who knows best what continuing education needs to be done so that there's responsible fees that are charged. There's a lot of things that can be done by the private sector. Everybody talks about being understaffed and everything else, but one example is lifts at ski lodges around Michigan. There's a group that goes out and does the inspections for the state. There's no reason why something like that cannot be eliminated and have that left up to the insurance companies that have to insure these lifts and ensure safe operations. Far better way to produce quite a bit of savings for us, and that's just one example.
Well, in case you didn't know, I am a licensed hairdresser. Truly. And I think we need to be careful when we're talking about eliminating licensing, because I don't think that any of us would want to go to a salon that maybe someone hasn't had training, or to have your eyebrows or your nails or whatever beauty things we have done by someone that isn't licensed. We need to be careful of that. I am in favor of less regulations, but I would really like to put more thought into that.
The idea for continuing education for professionals was to make sure that these professionals are up to date on the newest techniques, newest information, to make sure that they are providing the very best service to the consumer. So, you know, I was a teacher, 18 years. I went on and took continuing education every 6 years, or we had to have, or 5 years, you had to have 6 credits, graduate credits. Fortunately, you tried to make sure that you were taking those credits in the area of your expertise. What I would caution about is to make sure that we're not just doing this as an extra way to raise funds for our revenue. But I would like to also make sure that it is indeed to make sure that our professionals are up to date on what they need to know. I mean, I just came back from a third world country, and what I experienced there was very interesting. You don't have to be licensed to do hair, to do waxing, to teach. I mean, there's no qualifications. And so the service that you're getting may not be of the quality that I would expect in America. So I think that some of the standards that we put into place are there for a reason, and that is to make sure that we keep our skill level up. Because we're an ever-changing world, and technology is changing daily, so we want to stay on top of it. Just think if our doctors didn't change the way that they study medicine.
Thank you.
Gary, can you repeat the question one more time for me, please?
Put my notes away.
Shame on you.
It was regarding your philosophy on the involvement of government and getting more involved with regulation of different trades and services like grooming, dog grooming, or tattoo artists and things like that. And at one point in time, it was reported that it took less time and involvement to become a lawyer in the state of Michigan than it took to become a hairstylist.
It's something that I would want to look into a lot more. But my first thoughts are regulation. There's too much regulation now. That being said, I like to know that my barber has been certified. I like to know my barber has a license. Just I do. I don't get my eyebrows or nails done, but I'm sure my wife appreciates the people that does that for her as well. When it becomes abusive, when the state starts looking for reason to regulate or tax, or should we regulate this, or should we tax this, or how do we do it? I think sometimes it can be a little much. But I'm sure that people who get their dog groomed by a groomer that's certified appreciates that. You could probably do it yourself otherwise, and you probably know that you're not certified, so it might not come out quite the way you thought it might. So I appreciate the certification, but too much regulation and too much going after people for nonsense is nonsense.
Thank you. Hey, everybody, can we have a few good questions from the audience? And then we'll zip through these and we'll take our break. Why do you think our Republican-controlled House and Senate are acting like Democrats and expanding government, the example of the Medicaid expansion? And had you been representative at the time of Medicaid expansion, how would you have voted? Oh, let's go on the line. I'm sorry.
would I expand the Medicaid? Is that what you said?
Why do you think the state legislature, which is controlled by Republicans, are acting like Democrats, expanding government, like with, such as with Medicaid expansion, and had you been there, how would you have voted on Medicaid expansion?
Okay, well, a lot of the problem that I see is that, like term limits or not, we're creating an environment where people, this is their job, and they're looking at their next job. So they're trying to do what they can to, they're not looking at their constituents, they're not looking at what's best for their community, they're looking at what's best for them. And with the exception of Representative Cagle, of course. So therefore, I think they're making a lot of decisions based on what their next job is, okay? I have a job, I'm a teacher. And so I'm not looking, I'm looking at this to make a better community for all of us. Would I vote to expand Medicaid? No.
Thank you.
I believe the Medicaid expansion was based upon federal matching dollars, and that our legislators were kind of in a trap that they had to accept that in order to get the federal match coming from them. That was my understanding. But I want to address this from a different standpoint, is I would like to see Michigan go to a place where Medicaid is something that we really will have very little use for. Because I want to provide an environment that we will attract business, we'll attract we'll have number one education, we'll build a workforce, we'll have infrastructure, and we'll put people to work. And then Medicaid will be those that truly is for what it was intended, that are truly in need at a special time in their life, or at a difficult time.
I'm not sure why Republicans are acting like Democrats. I mean, there is no answer for that. I don't know if they're not listening to their constituents. I don't know if their constituents are, hot to trot on them about making a wise decision with respect to Medicare. I would not have supported Medicare, but it's easy to say what you would do from this position, okay? I don't know how, some people got sold. Some people that, said that they would do some things, and lobbyists were in there, and individuals are in there, and they got sold out. It's unfortunate, and their constituents weren't happy with them, and but as far as I'm concerned, I would not have supported it, and I do not know why any Republican would act like a Democrat, other than they have become a part of what happens in Lansing, what happens in Washington, and they start getting that sugar in their ear that sounds sweet. So, with the exception of State Representative Cagle.
The only sweetness he knows is from apples, right?
Yeah, peaches.
The perception that Republicans are acting like Democrats is unfortunate. And all I can tell you is that's not how I hope that I'll be perceived. The reason I'm running is because I want to make sure that Ronald Reagan Republican values are brought back. The vote that was taken for Medicaid, was not a vote that I would have taken. Disagree with it. I'm sure there was a lot of pressure from the governor. I know it was one of the items that was very important to him. But it's not a vote I would have taken.
Thank you. Question for all of you: should minimum wage be a state issue or a federal issue?
No, never, ever, ever a federal issue. State issue.
very interesting topic on minimum wage. What we've got with us right today, since NAFTA went into effect in the 80s, and when that happened, we all laughed about how we were going to be a service industry here in America and everything would be manufactured offshore. So what's happened now is we have a glutton of service industry workers, and they cannot provide for their families making minimum wage, and they need more money. What we don't, not everyone understands is that connected to minimum wage are all of the things that union contracts are made from. A union contract is based off that minimum wage. So if minimum wage goes up, so will the union workers' pay scale. And they're gonna end up floating way above what they should be getting. So when we're addressing minimum wage, it's not just to give those people with minimal skills that work in the fast food industry more money to support with their family. What we've got to do is concentrate on how we're going to get more middle-class jobs in this area so that we don't have to worry about those making minimum wage. We're always going to have people who have the same skill sets. Pay people for the skill sets they have. So I think we need to be very cautious when we look at this to see the tie with the unions and what the contracts the unions hold and how that's going to affect pay scale for them as well.
Okay, no, this should be a state. This should be a state issue. We've gotten into this minimum wage situation because a lot of people got degrees in areas that they should not have. And now they're working in places that they didn't expect themselves to have to work in. So now they are PhDs. So now they got a master's degree in left-handed puppetry but can't find a job. So they go to their boss and said, you know what? My $10 an hour or my $9 an hour is not fair. Well, you know, I'm not responsible for your college debt. That's you. So $15 an hour is what they're trying to push right now, is out of pocket, and I do support the idea that the states are supposed to be managing that, not the federal government.
I support state rights and local control, and that's where it should remain. It's not a federal issue. It should be left up to the states. The closest government's the best government.
Thank you. Couple more audience questions, and then we'll let you do your wrap up.
Patty, I'll just let you know.
Need a short break? 5 minutes?
No, just let you know.
We're almost.
Oh, we're almost done. We're almost done. Then let's make the response on these 1 minute.
Dancing, you see me doing this?
Then let's make the response of these 1 minute.
You could reuse that.
1 minute, no.
1 minute response on these last ones. How can we encourage more trade schools in our public schools? You know, not every child is geared for college. I know my son's not. He has no use going to college. So how do we encourage more kids to go into the trades?
Well, I think, first of all, we need money. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of public schools out there that would like to have different trade programs in their schools. So, great idea. We need the money. So we need to figure out where we can come up with the money and implement those trade schools within our public schools. Great idea.
We had something called Carl Perkins dollars, and that was used in the schools for vocational education. We came to Michigan because of Heath Company, and my husband worked with the vocational end of education. My business, Square One Group, was selling vocational education across the country. I worked with a network of dealers that did just that. What happened is we had a shift in funding. We went away from vocational education and we went into technical education, computers, if you remember. And when we did that, the funding switched. And so now we're going back and saying, well, come on, we need to go back to the trades. My son and my son-in-law are in the trades, and I totally support the trades. We have our CTE programs in the school systems are trying to accommodate that, but we have to make sure that we do have funding set aside for that. So I support the trades. We must have the trades. Not everyone's going to college. We know that. They never did. We
Thank
just
you.
have to make sure the funding is there.
I think the best way to handle that is introduce kids to different vocational or technical training at earlier ages. I think kids don't know about welding. They find out about welding in most cases in high school. Kids don't hear about, plumbing. They hear about it in high school. Everybody know when a fireman pulls up, they see their fire truck. They see the fire truck, and everybody say, you know what? I want to be a fireman. And that's because they can see that big red truck. Nobody sees a welder. Nobody sees a plumber. Nobody sees the skilled trades. And so us introducing kids to skilled trades a lot earlier will allow us to do it. I understand that they used to do it years ago, and the funding was cut for that. And so I think we should invest a lot more in skilled trades because it's an investment in our future. For the report that I heard, this is a report. I heard a report that there's 150,000 skilled labor jobs in the state of Michigan available right now. And so in order to get that done, I see the red.
Thank you.
I do, but
You're hurting your own cause.
All right. That's where I believe we need to start, and I believe we will get it done right now.
Sorry, we missed the yellow line.
You were listening, that's good.
I've actually met with a couple of the superintendents, and there's programs that are going on right now. There was a reference earlier to a Lake Shores program, and they've actually been teamed up with some of the local businesses and also the machine manufacturers. Other schools are now crossing borders so that they're combining the training that's going on. And some great things that are happening. They're actually getting people to volunteer from the local tool and die shops that come in and do on-spot inspections. The automotive group has come in and helped them, and they've actually installed like a checkout desk with one of those little computers and everything so that they get a full experience and they're ready. There's no question, I think, that our businesses can help out, and expanding that and working with our community colleges and high schools is the answer to that question.
Thank you. Last two questions, individually directed. First one to Mary Brown. I think you probably expected this one, and I'm going to embellish it a little bit. You're running as a Republican this time for a seat that you've run twice before as a Democrat, so you've switched parties. Can you explain to us why and what philosophies of the Republican Party have brought you across the aisle?
Definitely. I ran 60 years ago. It's not new news. I ran as a Democrat for state representative. I ran having no party affiliation, but I was told that run Democrat. I was a teacher. I did. I ran 2 years later because I still had that passion in my belly. I had that desire to make a change. I needed to do something to change the direction that we're going. And I had that burning, burning desire to make a difference. Through this last 6 years, I've done all I could to become more knowledgeable in what's going on in Lansing. I've also became the union president of my school district. I also became a member of this community board in Berrien County, working with juvenile in the system. So what I've done over the past 6 years was try to position myself and to also become as knowledgeable as possible and how I can make a difference and how I can use my skill set to make a difference for those of us within this district. And so, yeah, I switched. I went Republican. Who hasn't? With what's going on today with Hillary and with Bernie, who hasn't switched parties? And people are switching at record number. So this is really great for our Republican Party.
Thank you very much. Mr. Arndt, last question, individualized, is for you. You've been endorsed by Representative Pashulka, a man that you are hoping to succeed. Many in this room remember when he pledged and signed a pledge not to raise taxes. And he has encouraged voters to raise taxes and voted to raise taxes himself. What can you say to this crowd that will convince you that you will not follow in his footsteps?
Well, my answer to that is I'm a fiscal conservative, I'm a Ronald Reagan Republican, and I'm not Al. I will also say that Ronald Reagan had a firm 11th commandment, and that was a friend of mine, if I agree with somebody 80% of the time, they're a friend of mine. I don't agree with every vote that Al's taken. I certainly appreciate his endorsement and very thankful to have it. But I can also tell you, I'm not Al.
Thank you. We'll move to the final statements, and we'll take them in order of drawing from the hat. And then 1 minute for your final statements. I'm sorry to make you work, my friend. Mary Brown.
Great. But you know what, these are serious times that we're facing, very serious times. We don't have the flow of cash that we used to have. Our legislators have to be very responsible for what's going on. Enough is enough. I firsthand have experienced what's going on in education. I see the misuse of taxpayer dollars, and I am very angry about that. I am very angry about the abuses that we're facing. We're going from different benefit packages for our people when they're in the workforce now, from a defined contribution to defined benefits. Pensions are going away. I want to be the first union Republican person in Lansing. Now that would be something quite unusual. My perspective is very different. So my father was a very strong Republican, my mother was a very strong Democrat. And today I am representing myself as a Republican, and I'm asking for your vote because Mary Brown will not back down.
Thank you.
Hey, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and giving me an opportunity, giving me an opportunity to share Troy and share my platform. One of the things that differentiate me from my opponents is that I have been involved in this for a long time. I have, and a lot of you guys know, I've been when right to work became something that we talked about in the state of Michigan. I was invited to Washington, D.C. to talk about the strategy